Hello, friend. Season
4.
The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from a high desert encampment on the frontier of our agrarian hoplite republic. This is a variety program for happy warriors who are getting some seriously bad vibes from the deranged post-Christian technocracy. Grab a tankard of yak's milk and join us by the campfire as Sumo and Cavi return to shake your surveillance, expel your parasites, and generally have a good time. Are you ready? Stand by.
Mystical American Patriots Society, now available in 3 dimensions.
I was walking down a one-way street, just looking for someone to meet, for a woman who was looking for a man. Now I'm hoping that the feeling is right, and I'm wondering if to stay for the night. My woman, I don't wanna be lonely, baby, please help me. Do you believe in love? Do you believe it's true? Do you believe in love? Oh, you're making me believe it too. Hello, Cavi. Do you believe in love, Cavi? Do you believe in love?
I suppose so.
You suppose so. Hello, everyone. Today is a strange day. Hi, Cavi. Say hello to everyone with your beautiful face.
Hello, everyone. Here's my beautiful face.
It is beautiful, isn't it? He looks so wonderful and feline. So today it's a bit of a weird show. Today's a podcast about a podcast. You don't get a lot of those. It's Podcastception. It's a podcast about a podcast because I'm not only a maker of fine podcasts, I'm also a consumer of fine podcasts, wherever podcasts are sold.
We're switching to reaction content now?
Well, this is a reaction video in a sense, because there's a good case study. Two of my regular podcasts I've been listening to for longer than my children have been alive. They both said some interesting. They've gone on an arc over that time as people grow and change. Not always for the better. You know, we always use growth to be positive. And most of the time it is. Sometimes it's negative. You know, sometimes a tree grows in a very gnarled way. Sometimes you have growth in response to trauma. I had a broken foot, and I have a big bone spur there. It works fine, but like you can tell on the top of my foot is like this hump where the bone regrew in not quite the same way. It doesn't affect me at all.
As we learned this week, it could be much worse.
It could be much worse. That's correct. Speaking of feet, listeners asked if I record with the boots on, and of course I do. Look at that. Boots are always on. I just wanted to show people that that was true. Because you never know. You never know when you're in a combat scenario, as we are on this orbital podcasting platform, when you will need to fly into combat. You know, if you're on an aircraft carrier, when you're on duty, you're not out of uniform. Like when you're off duty, sure, you may be in your bunk playing your Nintendo Switch or whatever it is you're doing on your aircraft carrier. But when you're on duty, you wear your uniform, and that is true for me as well. It's for everyone that becomes a MAPSOC space cadet. But today is sort of a reaction content because they've taken an arc of growth, some for the better, some for the worse. But I thought it was indicative of how we got here. Because, as I say, one podcast I've been following since 2011, early 2011. And another podcast since 2009-ish, right? Which is a long time. Like this is the early days of podcasting. And both of them probably benefit from being first responders. Because I don't think if they had to build a following today, it would be a lot harder. They both have quality podcasts, but they don't stand out in the way that maybe a modern podcast has to. They're both, for example, only audio. They both, I don't know. They're both great, but I'm just saying they benefit from having started when podcasts started. They still have a loyal following from then, but they said some things that I feel are watching them grow and change. And like I said, not always for the better from 2009 to 2026. I think in light of recent things said on their shows is a good case study in how we got from there to here, how society got from there to here, the arc that happened. Because I can sort of chart it by their lives, like an astrologer or a palm reader. And so that's what we're going to do today. Today is a rare reaction video podcast. Although by reaction, I mean I'm going to say some things and then talk about them. And I hope that neither of these groups of men will hate me if they ever see this. I doubt they ever will. But if they ever do, I hope they don't hate me. But I also don't have my fingers crossed. Because
Are you going to name the podcast?
Of course I'm going to name the podcast.
Okay, I'm anticipating. I'm very excited.
Oh, you are? Do you know what podcast I'm thinking of or talking about?
Not at all. That's why I'm excited to learn.
Okay, well, good. I'm going to name the podcast and the people and maybe say some things about their character as human beings. To the best, in my opinion, not in a factual way. But it'll be good. But first, Cavi, we just had Christmas and New Year's. Do you remember what holiday it is now?
Kwanzaa.
No, it's Maps Toyotathon, which means you, listener, right now, click at the bottom. Do it right now. Because here's what happens. People think, oh, yeah, I should do that. But people are lazy. Everyone's lazy. I get it. It's fine. It's not a... Clicking is hard. There's buttons and there's like keys and the words are different things on the screen now when you click it. And then you got to look and like, oh, no, where's my thing? I code. What is my password? It's hard. I get it. I don't know. I use to the best of my ability, I use one password for everything, which is exactly what they tell you not to do because I cannot possibly keep all these passwords. And then, now when you go online or use your phone and it's like, hey, you want me to generate a password for you? And it's something a string of incomprehensible numbers and letters. You could never possibly remember. So then it's in your phone and who knows? You can't log into it if you're not on your phone and so forth and so on. Yes, Kathy.
Do you want some password advice?
Sure. I'm not going to take it, but sure.
Okay. So they try to get you to use these stupid mixtures of letters, numbers, symbols, and all that. And if you use, say, 10 of those, 10 characters, it's not great. You're not going to remember it, and a computer can brute force that eventually. So instead, pick 4 random words, string them together, and you can very easily remember 4 random words. And then you end up with a password that's 20-something characters long, way harder for a computer to guess, but very easy for you to remember.
Well, I try to do that, but then what happens is they say, "Oh, well, you have 4 words on this one. You can't use normal words." So then I like misspell one, and then they say, "Oh, you need a number," and I put a number, and they say, "Oh, you
Yeah.
need a special character."
So just have like the same number and the same special character tacked on the end for that.
I mean, I try to, but some of them. See, what happens is I make one, and then it's like, okay, that works for most of them. But then this spot over here says, no, you need one more character in your password. So then I'm like, then I add an X. Then I usually put like an exclamation point on the end, or it's a mess. It's a mess. Passwords are unruly now, and I get it, right? You have to click in the thing, but even so, it is Toyotathon in space now. It is Maps Toyotathon. This keeps Cabby from dying and being poor. What I need you all to do is go onto your computers right now and click and scroll down, and there's a bunch of lists at the bottom, and those lists at the bottom will have Gumroad, Patreon, and or Substack. You can subscribe in any of those places to see paywall content that we release now, sometimes periodically, hopefully more periodically in the future. We're on a roll, and that you can support the show, which does wonderful work in this world, in a world full of darkness. In a world full of darkness, give your money to people burning candles, which is us. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. This is the candle. Kumbaya. Give it to us. We need it, okay? Cabby especially. Cabby lives in a tyrannical hellhole of a place. I mean, it's you never know what could happen to him and his family. His wife is Chinese. Do you know the Great Leap Forward? It wasn't that good. It wasn't that good of a leap. It was caused a lot of problems. And they need all the help they can get. Do you not support minorities and women? Do you not? If you do, then give money to me, because then it goes also to Cabby, minorities and women. Do you see? Okay. So.
Oh, also don't forget you get access to the Telegram group where you can see exclusive feet pics.
That's right. Smokestack just tweeted out a thing of his feet. You're missing that. Smokestack, the dead AI, just did an AI rendering of his feet that he thinks is his actual real feet. A photo in his fake house that he pretends to live in, but he doesn't know because it's like a Total Recall situation, except he doesn't have a body. Anyway, I was telling people about his weird toes, and he has very long, and he finally decided to defend himself by posting a picture of his weird toes. But then everyone agreed, no, these are all quite long, weird toes. So, it is what he's got. Lots of strange anatomy, to be honest. Lots of strange anatomy. He's a handsome guy. Don't get me wrong. He's handsome, but there's like a possibility of like extra, no one's sure, extra nipples, extra things. It's strange, but with clothes on, you can't tell. But I have seen him shirtless more than once, and it's like, wow, what's happening? And then you get used to it. So if you want in-depth information into that sort of thing and all the great discussions that we have, a lot of stuff that is on that Telegram channel is seeds for ideas about what to talk about on this show. So you get to be a participant in crafting the show like a brewer or like a person making artisanal bread. That's what you get to be. It's handcrafted every day by our special Mapsock elves that live in the Telegram chat. So everyone come. Let's do it now. Don't wait. If you would do it for Toyota, do it for us. There we go. So, Mapsock Toyotathon, everyone stop what you're doing right now. If you're driving your car, pull over and sign up. Do not drive another mile until you've finished your duty and signed up to fund this show, which is an operation against all the darkness of the world. And it's a little way that you can help. Let your little light shine. Let your little light shine by pulling over your car. Stop doing the dishes. If you're out shoveling snow, stop it. Whatever you're doing, pay for the podcast. There we go. That's the thing. We're going to do this until we did. We got good results last time. We have not reached our goal yet, and I'm going to continue annoying you all with this until you do. It's a threat of annoyance until you comply. So go ahead and comply, and then we can move on. Okay? Don't be like someone who thinks they can get away from ice by talking smack, and then they get like a rock thrown in their face. That's the equivalent here. Which is kind of like Ice, I guess, but more like Ice-T the rapper. And I'm aggressively telling you that I'm going to make a rap about you but it won't be a nice one. It won't be very considerate unless you join the Maps Toyotathon. Okay, Cavi. So I played this song at the beginning. I don't know how well I played it. Not very good, honestly. Do you believe in love? And all that. Because that is one of the people in this podcast is a musician, and he does a nice cover of this song. That's not actually his song. Who did it? Huey Lewis and the News? Was that who did it first? I don't remember. But he does a nice cover of this song. I tried to play some of his other songs, but I had two problems. One, I didn't really have access to my ukulele. And two, a dulcimer has, it's not really limited in its chords, but you have to get creative with it because it does skip steps. Like you go a whole step, half step, and you just don't have the notes in between up here. So you have to go down here, and you have to get a little creative with it to make it happen. So I picked one that I could do, one on the chord issue, but then two, the guy has some crazy syncopation, which is something I really like about his music. Like he'll be like, and it always works somehow. It's trying to copy it is not a small task. It'll be like, and somehow it works. Somehow this cacophony he throws in the middle of his strumming patterns or whatever always works. And there's like a chord change. It's very complicated. So that out of the way. He's, I enjoy his music a lot, and I hope that you guys maybe will also enjoy his music later after I tell you about him. But here we go, Cavi. I'm gonna start this. I got a little show for you here, and we are gonna start it, and I'm going to tell you about it as soon as I pull it up on the screen. The screen share button is always hard to find. Here we go. This is the name of the podcast. You ready? The first one we're going to talk about. You ready? 1 and 2 and 3. Can you see it?
Roderick on the line.
Are you familiar with that show?
Not at all.
Okay. This is a case study about how we got here. So over here, this first guy, if you can see him, there's for listeners at home, because I know some people still listen, and that's fine. You're welcome to be an audio-only person. We love you just the same as anyone. Some of our listeners may be even blind, and I want them to have the same experience. I want this show to be an audio braille, as it were. So I'm going to help everyone and describe it to you. It's a picture of two men looking at their image on a computer from a webcam from about the year 2004. And the closest one to us closest one to the word Roderick is Merlin. His name is Merlin, like the wizard. That's his actual name. Merlin Man. And his buddy behind him is John Roderick. John Roderick is the singer I was telling you about. He was the lead and for some instances the only guy in a band called the Long Winters, which is a pretty good band of they had their big run, I would say, between 1998 and 2007. And since then, they've been sort of pseudo-retired, and he brings them back every now and then. But it's always with like a rotating cast of background players. And the only guy that's constant is John Roderick. And he's written all the songs in there and everything. Great guitar player, good singer, interesting fellow. Okay. And they've had this podcast going on since 2011. This is the one since 2011. And I knew about even Merlin before that, because Merlin was a guy. Are you familiar? You probably aren't familiar with anything I'm about to say. This is going to be a short history lesson into the app days and early iPhone days of San Francisco. Okay. Because a lot of people may not be aware, but when the iPhone was getting started, see the iPhone? I have a Dragon Ball Z Kami House case. When the iPhone was getting started, there was a whole hullabaloo about it. Do you remember this? The whole hullabaloo around the iPhone and the apps?
Yeah, I remember it being a pretty new, amazing thing.
It was a new, amazing thing. And were you familiar with what was going on in San Francisco at the time?
No.
Okay, so what was happening in San Francisco at the time was basically the equivalent of a modern day gold rush, where everyone was like, there's this platform, the iPhone. We can all tell it's going to be huge. They weren't wrong. And we got to be the people that make the app now that gets everything, whatever it is. There are no apps now. There's like 7. And there's like, between then and now, there's now like 7 billion. And they said, we got to be the first person that has this. Everyone, and they all fled to San Francisco mostly, formed little groups they were working in, like small houses, everyone just coming up with apps left and right. Most of them were garbage, but a small minority of them made people billionaires. And that's what was happening. But in that milieu of young, mostly white people, mostly men, flooding to San Francisco to seek their fortune, as Americans always do. We always flee to California to seek our fortunes. What they required was various forms of food and entertainment, and also gurus to help them not have mental breakdowns. And John Roderick became, inadvertently really, he wasn't seeking this, he was more of a punk rock guy. He became the entertainment for the digerati, the digital class of people in that milieu. He was at all of the conferences, the tech conferences. He would be there playing. He was at all the little events. He would be at the Microsoft thing, and sometimes the South by Southwest, and all the thing and the thing and the thing. And he would end up being on all the podcasts that people were launching. And Merlin, on the other hand, was a productivity guru. This is him when he was there. See, he's got nice glasses. Handsome, both handsome guys. This one up here is John. There's Merlin. And he had 43 folders, which he hasn't updated, which is still online, but he hasn't updated since 2011. So it's been a while. 43 folders was an Inbox Zero was his 2 big projects. And he was very popular at the time in that San Francisco milieu for people trying to get organized and have all this stuff coming in and out, and people are trying to do all these crazy things. And he was like, here's how you keep organized and don't lose your mind. Okay. This was what was going on in San Francisco. This was also what was going on. Here's the picture of the hipster guy who goes to Starbucks starter pack. Everyone was dressing like that. And the millennial NPC starter pack, which is also what they were sort of dressed like. A lot of Starbucks, a lot of comic books for some reason, tons of coffee. Everyone suddenly decided they all needed coffee all the time. Flannel shirts were big, tattoos. Everyone had a tattoo. Every guy had a beard. For a good decade, every single man had a beard. They wore suspenders for some reason, and also vests and bowler hats and everything. So that's what was going on. It's a culture I know well and remember well. It was very strange. A lot of strange things happened. Everyone was trying to strike it rich on some new thing that no one understood how it would turn out. And very few people did. And most people just looked really weird and did a bunch of weird things. And a lot of them ruined their lives in the gold rush, as it goes. This is more of what happened. There's the original iPhone 2007, the avocado toast. You can see the thing, Foursquare here. This is it. Do you remember Foursquare? Did you ever use Foursquare? I think it's still around.
I never used it, and Foursquare blew my mind that people would just be posting wherever they go, and they thought that was cool and wouldn't get their houses broken into or something.
Yeah,
and I don't get it.
Well, this is the example of what I mean by it was that culture, in that Foursquare was an app started by people like I just mentioned, a house full of guys in their 20s who had they had nothing. They weren't worried about anything being stolen, and none of them were women worried about a stalker raping them. And so they thought, yeah, this is cool. We'll just show everyone where we are all the time, and that way we can meet up. And so that was the kind of idea. And somehow that still is a thing, but I don't think a lot of people use it anymore. But for a good 2 years, everyone was like, yeah, Foursquare. And they had this South by Southwest thing, and then the North by Northeast. And this guy down here is Patrick Norton. He was on Tech TV back in the day. He was also there for some reason. There's just a lot of characters that were there in this little slice of American history that don't go talked about very much, but had an outsized impact on the way things happened and what you use today. A lot of the stuff that you're using today was made by or influenced by people like Patrick and Merlin and so forth and so on. And a lot of the entertainment you consume was probably, at least somewhat influenced by John and guys that look like this in a beanie here, eating coffee, working at a coffee stand, thinking he's so cool. This is some of John's albums. Like I said, they're all really good, actually. They're very, very millennial coded. You may not enjoy them. They're not stomp, clap, hey. It's not like woo, woo, hey, stomp. It's not that. It's not like Mumford and Sons or whatever. He was wanting to be a rock band, but I think his big problem was he never could decide on what genre he was playing. And that's hard to sell if like one is like a psychedelic dreamscape and the next is a hard rock thing and the next is like a metal. You got to be something. You got to pick a lane. And he never could pick a lane. Anyway, when apple trees grow pears. So Merlin and John have had this podcast going on for years, since 2011, like I say. So I guess 15 years now. And it is about mostly them just talking on the phone. That's the whole premise, is they call each other on the phone, they record it. It used to be Skype, now it's something else. I don't know what they're using. And John is a very charismatic person that can talk for hours. And he has all these stories. He's been all over the world, so forth and so on. Okay. And this is one of his favorite stories to tell from his time in Romania when he did a walk across Europe. Again, I speak with only admiration for these two fellows, but they have a problem, I think, my opinion, that is rather big. Nonetheless, only admiration. This is one of his, now this story about this fellow here. His name is Nicolae Ceaușescu. This is allegedly how you pronounce this name, according to the internet. Ceaușescu. He's a Romanian guy. And this story cannot be found in anywhere in the world, as far as I am aware. Maybe in a Romanian language, it can be found. It cannot be found, as far as I can tell, in English. There's no evidence for it. None, really. This is a apocryphal, possibly apocryphal tale about this man and about the collapse of communism in Romania. Okay? Because this guy was the dictator of the communist Romania. I forget exactly what it was called. Maybe the People's Republic of Romania. One of those things that people say. Let's see. Make sure I'm still good. Do I still sound good? I had a little thing come up. I think I'm still good.
You're still? Okay. Yeah, you're still good.
Okay. So the story I'm about to tell you, if you look it up for it, if you go looking for it, you will not find anything. Unless you speak Romanian, and then maybe you will on Romanian Skynet. But it is a story that I can confirm personally. Romanians in real life, not on the internet, will tell you that as a fact. This is like a folk tale from Romania and the collapse of communism. So in 1989, this guy was executed for crimes against Romania or whatever, but he was the president of the Romanian communist dictatorship for a while before that. And here's the little article from the New York Times, or I think the Los Angeles Times actually, December 27th, 1989, about his death. He was arrested, executed. He had to sit on the roof for a while. It's kind of funny. He was being surrounded by a mob, climbed on the roof, got rescued by a helicopter, but I think that there's something went wrong. Anyway, whatever. And Romania at the time was really big in apple trees. That was their main export. They were trying to be like, well, we've been in the Soviet Union for a long time. That's on the outs and no longer really a thing. But maybe we can join the world economy now. What do we do good? We grow apples here. We grow apples real well. So what we're going to do is we're going to grow apples. And we're going to sell the apples to the world. And it looks great on paper. On paper, this looks so good. Here's an apple tree. On paper, this looks so good because their GDP was going up and up and up a lot. And everything looked good and everyone. But what was not recorded on paper was that they did this by selling essentially all of their apples and other foodstuffs by which I mean even the ones that they would have eaten. And so what was happening was there was this period of like becoming mass starvation happening. How did this happen? He had this great line in his penultimate speech. He was talking about how great their apple fields were doing. And he said, we're going to make, this is going to continue until apple trees can grow pears. When apple trees grow pears, we grow anything off an apple tree. It's going to be amazing. So here's what the Romanians will tell you. If you run into a Romanian in the wild, and you mostly won't, although if you do, they're not going to be a Romanian because they've all left. Because again, like I said last time, anyway, that's where people want to leave. What they will tell you is that what happened was a system was put in place by which people were graded on their crop yields. And there was punishments for not meeting quotas. And rewards for exceeding quotas. And so everyone was incentivized, and it was kind of graded on a curve, right? So you had to keep up with your neighbor's yield every year. And they thought this was a great way to incentivize work. This was their interpretation of capitalist market forces. They said, well, we'll have like a competition. And what it turned into over years of that was that whoever didn't meet quota would lie about it on paper to avoid punishments. And everyone that did would lie about how much more they got to get the benefits. And because it was graded on a curve, everyone was incentivized to make it up more and more and more. Because if the guy that did the best, he inflates his numbers, well, now to make yours look like they're still in the same spot, you have to inflate yours more, right? And so that was a problem. That was a problem for the world and for America, and or not for America, for Romania. What does that button do? Just click the button. Did anything happen?
Your slide changed.
My slide changed?
Now your slides are gone.
I'm going to share it again. I think I hit a button. Let's share. Wait a minute. Is it now sharing?
It is, but you've got like the main PowerPoint open.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, I hit a button and now I didn't hit a button. We're good. We're good.
Success.
We're good. All right, we're back. So this is, here it is. So this is the guy. And so what eventually happened was they were but the problem was, of course, that when you sell the apples to Europe, they don't want pretend apples on paper. They wanted real apples. And so all this money they were allegedly getting was just on paper. They didn't actually have it. And people also didn't have any food because they were trying to meet these imaginary quotas of and this was, apples was the main crop, but every other crop was like this as well. And so one day this got so bad that Ceaușescu was driving through. This is the apocryphal Romanian folktale. He was driving through the countryside, inspecting all of the orchards. And, they'd already plucked the apples off the tree at this time in this one area. And the folk they were so scared of being like, oh no, this is not, we're going to look like we're going to be cut out lying, right? Because we don't look like we have enough apples. So the whole village got together and spent the week before he was to come through tying apples back onto the trees with little strings. Just tie the apples back on the trees along the road of which the president's car would come past, to make it seem like they had so many apples. And it wasn't them that was a problem, right? So they picked the apples and they said, oh no, tie the apples back on the tree. This is what Romanians will tell you. Now, I don't know if this is real. Like I said, you can't find any evidence of this outside of Romanians telling you this happened. But this is something they believe. And here is John again. He's with Ken Jennings. Again, it was very incestuous. Everyone was with everybody. The guy that does Jeopardy. But this is sort of a quote he had on his last podcast, because John has referenced this story so many times because he spent time in Romania. He said they created a scenario where everyone was unable to tell the truth, and because nobody can disagree with them, they all think they're geniuses. Okay. That's a paraphrasing. It was something like that. They're sitting in an empty pool, by the way. Okay, but here's the thing. Merlin has a trans kid, and so does the other guy they podcast with sometimes, or have in the past, Jesse Thorne, who runs the Maximum Fun Network, again, also in that milieu. Trans kid, right? So keep in mind this idea, this quote, which is not really a quote, it's a paraphrase. They created a scenario where everyone is unable to tell the truth, and because nobody could disagree with them, they all think they're geniuses. And they say this. Now, again, I want to say, I think that I think that Merlin and John, I haven't met them in person, obviously. I think they are both trying to do the right thing. And I think that they are both of a good heart. I do. But here's the point of this reaction podcast. This sentiment, they cannot see in what they're doing, right? The idea that people are also unable to tell the truth about what's happening in gender things, among other things like race and whatever, immigration. Because for a long time, I think a lot of people think that people on the left are simply lying and gaslighting. And that I don't, some are, but genuinely these people have a massive blind spot regarding their own behavior. And I've tried to work out what that is. And I think I'm drilled into a little bit on this podcast through the lens of these two gentlemen. Okay, so Merlin again, like I said, he has a daughter that now thinks she's a boy. And Jesse over here, this guy with the weird, that's a very hipster beard and hipster clothing. He has a boy that now thinks he's a girl. Okay, and they both will get, if you bring this up around them, they will become exactly this scenario with Ceaușescu. They will be tying the apples back on the trees. They will say you're bad. No, it is. There are women. It's this. That's what will happen. Okay. That's what will happen if you bring it up. And yet I must say, I do not think it comes from a place of, well, I think Merlin loves his child and wants the best for him, right? I think this is the thing, right? Now, but the problem is the fact that they are all telling a lie about what's happening, and they're not even aware of it. This is how communism sort of happens. If America ever falls, and I don't think it's that I think it's farther away from that than most people do. It will be because of that. It will be because of tying apples on the trees, because there's a lie or several lies that people cannot tell the truth about. And maybe they lie about it so much that they eventually come to think it's true. That can happen too. That's why lying is so dangerous. For many reasons, lying is so dangerous. If you tell the same lie enough, you begin to believe your own lie. But reality still exists outside of your lie. You can tie the apples back. You can write as many apples on paper as you want. The apples will not be on the tree. Okay. So Merlin gets a little bit of a pass from me here. Not, as much as one can, because his daughter started thinking she was a boy when she was a teenager, which at least that is a time when they could come up with it themselves. Jesse's kid did it when they were 5 years old. It was a 5-year-old little boy. And this guy and his wife, in my opinion, are sexually abused a 5-year-old by telling them they're a different sex than they are, a different gender than they are. However they want to word spin it. Oh, it's not sex, it's gender, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I think personally from listening to them, again, I can't prove this. This is just my opinion. I think they did this for the attention and for the clout and to fit in with the liberal ethos that was handing a lot of money out to people. I think they basically, my opinion, sacrificed their child for money and fame. That's what I think happened. I think it is a modern Molekian ritual, right, that has happened. I don't think Merlin did that. I think Merlin is operating out of a place of genuine love, but also very confused and twisted. This is why I said if they ever watch this, they'll probably hate me forever. Sorry, I have to tell the truth. I have to tell what I perceive to be the truth. If I maybe I'm wrong, But if I didn't speak what I thought was true, I would be the person tying the apples on the trees, right? And this is an issue that is continuing to fester in our society. Okay. Again, this is Jesse Thorne. He wrote this years ago. I think his daughter is now 13. He said, my daughter is 9. When she was born, we assumed she was a boy, gave her a boy name, called her he, etc., etc. And his wife, Teresa, has written It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity for children. I think that these two people are doing... Assault is not the right word for it. They are doing... Well, they're inappropriately exposing children to sexuality, at the very least. I think that that's a problem. I think that these two people are... I don't think this man is evil over here, Merlin. I personally believe these two are evil and doing it for... And I think you can see it behind their eyes, actually, in photos. I mean, this may be just me. I think her eyes and his eyes look like they have evil behind them. I don't see it behind his eyes. I think this man is doing something because he doesn't know how to do otherwise, and he's confused about what's happening. I think these two are probably evil, in my opinion. That's just, I'm just saying it. That's what I think. Okay. So, again, paraphrasing. This is paraphrasing John. The Romanians had a culture of lying. Okay, but neither of these men are capable of seeing that they are that which they criticize. And this is it in a nutshell. There really is somehow, and I struggle to explain this, there's a large section of America and the West in general that understands academically and on paper. And like, if you ask them, they could recite a reason and a rationale to explain it. The problems with both fascism and communism and why there are problems. And yet, when they exhibit those same behaviors, cannot recognize it. And I've tried to figure out why that is. And especially from following these two guys, because they started out in 2011 more or less normal. I mean, they were San Francisco tech people, which, I mean, how normal can you be? Or San Francisco tech adjacent. But if you'd have asked them in 2011, should you use a plural pronoun for a singular person to call one person they? They'd have been like, well, no, that's ridiculous, right? At least that's my impression of them. And as the years have gone by, they have slowly acquiesced in saying, well, I guess that, and I guess that, and I guess that, to the point where now I think they hold positions that are genuinely insane. Like it is ridiculous to ask someone to be called by a plural pronoun. That is it's like, we're going to the store, and they just mean themselves. That's crazy. That's insane, right? And it's very confusing, if nothing else, for other people. It's actually an act of aggression. People want to talk about microaggressions, trying to force you to use specific pronouns only in their instance is a means of imposition on you and saying your language and the way that everyone else speaks it is not good. For me personally, you must change it and be cognizant. And if you don't, I get to be mad. That's a form of aggression, actually. That's a form of propaganda. That is the tying an apple back on a tree, right? Because that's insane. That's an insane proposition. It is less insane, although I still do not agree with it, to ask to be called, if you're a biological man, to be called a she. At least you're asking to be called one person. To be asked like, I'm a they, is crazy. You're not. You're one individual. You are not they. We have plurals for a reason, because it's useful in speech to talk about more than one person. And then it's useful to talk about singulars. And you cannot be, no, it's just not gonna, like, that's ridiculous. But like I said, here's my question to myself and to you. Is it a boiling the frog scenario where you acquiesce to one little thing because it's uncomfortable to do, and then you acquiesce to another, and then it snowballs to the point where you no longer are capable of seeing the problems in your own position and inconsistencies? Or is it simply an act of cowardice to say the truth. Like, because the one would be cowardice, and the other would be a state of accumulated confusion. And I think we have two camps going on. I think we have a lot of people that are, well, we have a third camp that's just outright evil. But that's a minority, right? I think that's the thing I'm trying to drive home to people on the right wing, is that outright evil in the left is a minority of people. They exist, right? Then you have people that are, a lot of people that are just cowards, and they're just saying it because they fear the mob. But then you have probably the majority of people who are an accumulated confusion, like one lie stacks upon another in this twisted knot of like, here's what is reality, to the point where even if I could say, well, no, I'm just not going to say that a single person is plural, that pulls on a thread that pulls on a thread that pulls on a thread that connects to Hitler in their minds. It's like this ball of mental chaos, which is a problem with telling small lies too. Small lies accumulate and tangle up on each other into big ones. Right, like I said here, as far as Jesse Thorne, I think he strikes me. Jesse Thorne's actually the guy that got Owen Benjamin kicked off all of the internet, because at the time, Owen's thing on Twitter was he was at war with him, and he said, "Look, whatever. If you're going to put your son in a dress for a while, that's not like the end of the world. But are you going to give them like puberty blockers and hormones? Because that's like permanently damaging." And Jesse wouldn't respond, and they go back and forth, and got him kicked off the internet. He's doing fine now, but it was a mean thing. It was genuinely evil. I think he is playing the victim while abusing someone. In my opinion, he's playing. Can you still hear me? This thing says sometimes that my microphone changes randomly.
You got a little bit crackly for a bit, but you're good.
Am I back?
Yep.
I'm back. Okay. I think this person over here, this Jesse, I think they're sexually abusing children and playing the victim. That's my opinion of their behavior. Right? Would that qualify in a court of law? I don't know, but that's my opinion in there under the rubrics of child abuse or whatever. But that's my opinion. I think they are abusing a child for clout, financial gain, and then playing the victim when they do so. Right? That's so I think that they're evil. Merlin is not doing that. Right? Okay. Is it a generational divide? Right? Because on some sense, I toyed with this. These two, John and Merlin, are Gen Xers. Jesse Thorne is a millennial. And I think when you talk about, because John and Merlin will talk a lot on their podcast about Hitler and communism and stuff. And what I noticed, and I've noticed this not only with them, but with all Gen Xers and with all boomers, or almost all, their vision of tyranny is always one guy at the top controlling a rigid hierarchy, right? Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, whoever, Franco. I think for the same reason they didn't get Bitcoin, I don't think Gen X is capable of understanding a distributed tyranny. I think they only get the strongman. I don't think they're capable. I think they perceive distributed tyranny as democracy, or as the wisdom of the crowds, which was a tech term that used to come out. The crowds are not wise, but there was a whole book about like the wisdom of the crowds, crowdsourcing, this and that. That was like a whole thing in the San Francisco milieu at the time. That if you trust the mass of people, they will, on average, choose the right way. I think we could throw that idea in the dumpster. That's not true. But I think people that grew up, I think this is a real thing. This is a technological explanation for how we got here. I think people that grew up before the internet and reached full adulthood before the internet, Gen Xers and so forth, do not in their bones understand a distributed system like the internet, where things are like nodes in a network and stuff. I don't think boomers are capable of understanding it. They only can see the model that's like a Hitler, which is why they hate Donald Trump. Like, oh, that looks like the same guy. Like that, yeah, there's the thing, right? They can only see that, I think, is what's happening in part. And the idea that tyranny might be distributed across the masses and that the masses might become tyrannical doesn't register. That doesn't register. Jesse Thorne, I don't know. He's a creepy guy. I don't know. But here's the problem with it. But this is why I can't fully. That excuses some people, but it doesn't excuse all people because they still think this way even after John himself was canceled. Here he is with a pot of beans. Here he is with a pot of beans. John with a pot of beans and a spoon coming out of a tin. Are you familiar with Bean Dad, Cavi?
Bean Dad, no.
Bean Dad? Yeah, Bean Dad. Take a guess what Bean Dad is.
A dad that's either made out of a bean or has beans.
Well, that's a good guess, but no. John Roderick is Bean Dad also, unfortunately. With 2000, here's the thing. It's actually what he's doing is, again, okay, you know what? Here we go. And then how's that?
Much better.
Okay, I'm going to get a new microphone. That's another thing that the Toyotathon is. Look, this stuff is expensive. You know how expensive it is to run a podcast, guys? This podcast, you got to do your domain registration and your website fees and the Telegram I have to pay so that I can upload big files and the Dropbox so I can share files and then the this and the that and the that and this. Everything is expensive, okay? So, listen, if I start to go out again, just say something. But I got to get a new microphone. And you can help by joining the Maps Toyotathon. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is John, and he became Bean Dad. The thing is, I think in a different age, he'd have got along perfectly fine. He'd have probably been, everyone on the right wing would have been okay with this guy. Because his philosophy and parenting style is very interesting. But in 2021, he did this series of tweets. And basically, what was happening, I'm not going to read this to you. But he had a daughter who was 9, and she wanted some food. And he said, how about some baked beans? And she said, how? And I was like, well, how do you open the can and put it in a pot? And she said, how do you open a can? And he realized that she was 9 years old, almost 10, and had never opened a can. And he thought that's ridiculous. When I grew up in the 70s, I had to feed myself every day, is his thought process, right? And he thought this was a good teaching moment. He said, you can figure this out. You can figure this out. You can figure this out, daughter. I will help you figure this out. But you got to basically do it on your own. I'm going to encourage you. Because he wanted to impart in her the ability to figure things out, which is a huge skill to learn. And I applaud him for this move, actually. He said, look, he said, you got it. Here's the can opener. You figure out how this works and you open that can. I'm not going to tell you anything more than this is the can opener. This is the can. And she spends hours on it, because if no one's shown you how to work a can opener and you're 10 or 9, it's a little like there's a lot of fiddly. And he just keeps saying, it goes on for hours. She gives up. She says, can we eat something else? And he's like, neither of us are eating a thing until you can open this can. And it takes her like 5 hours. She gets the can open, and then she's ecstatic. She's like, I did it, which is what you're going for. You want your child to be able to figure out stuff on their own and experience the joy of overcoming an obstacle to do things to get them through their life, right? And the response is why we're a problem, right? The response to this, for this, he was canceled by the mob for a full 2 years. He endured his own humiliation ritual and cannot see that he still is siding with the communists, which is like, here's some of the comments about this. Bean Dad, like many bad parents, has taught his daughter, this is all like responses when this was happening. This person says, Bean Dad, like many bad parents, has taught his daughter these essential lessons. 1, your needs are less important than mine. 2, I will not help you when you ask me for help. 3, I will praise myself for denying you help. 4, my ego is always more important than you. And 5, I cannot be trusted. That's how people in our society took this, what I consider a very important parenting lesson. If you did this every day, it would be a problem. But if you set your child like, you have to figure out this essential skill on your own, and I believe you can do it, and you're trying to help them get there, That's really something to teach someone. And no one taught these people this, which is why they act like this. This is why they have no idea how to do anything unless you show them first, right? No idea. This is so true. A good 90% of people in our society, and probably people under 35, it is 98%. If someone does not instruct them on how to do a thing step by step, they cannot do it. Not because they're not smart, because they don't have the confidence. They're not an expert. They weren't trained. They might do it wrong. They do not have the confidence to figure out something on their own. Can you still see me, Cav, or is it just the screen?
I can see you in a tiny little box above the screen.
Perfect. So, this is something that I learned. Not so much. I did learn it in my home, but not to this extreme example. But in college, when you do physics, you really have to learn this, because even today, like, the things that you're doing and you're trying to measure are not things that are measured by enough people that someone makes like a tool for it, where you could or a jig. And so I was doing all kinds I built my own vacuum chamber, and no one ever showed me how to do that. I built a vacuum chamber, and I could get it down to 10 to the minus 8 atmospheres, which is, it's not even that great, really, for a vacuum chamber, but it's pretty good for someone that didn't know what they were doing. But I had to make a vacuum chamber. Like, where do you buy a vacuum chamber of this proportion? You don't. You have to build it. And so, I designed it in AutoCAD and I did all this stuff, and then went down to the lathe, and you had to figure it out yourself. I had to wire it myself. I had to wire, and I shocked myself with the electricity coming out of the wall, and it wasn't good because I had a bare circuit and I thought it was unplugged, but it wasn't. And I touched it, I went, ah! It flew off the thing. It doesn't feel good to be shocked. But that's how you figure things out, right? And this virtue of self-reliance, which I think John himself has in spades, and which really built America, is not only seen as something that people not only they do not have, but something that they should not have and cannot possess. Everything has to be outsourced to an expert, to someone with training, to whatever. I taught myself this, and almost every music I know. Now, I'm not the best singer in the world. That's something you're kind of born with or not. But no one ever taught me anything about, music. It's just you look at it and eventually right. A whole step is bigger than the half step. It's actually a physical thing. It's not just musical notation that they made up arbitrarily. It's like do, re, mi, fa, so. It's like, right? It makes sense because it's actually a physical lengthening of a string or diameter of a windpipe. When you look at things, you can actually figure them out yourself. But for this lesson, this other person said, almost every single disabled and neurodivergent person can tell you a story of child abuse they've experienced, similar to the way Bean Dad abused his child. He got child services called on him for trying to get his daughter to figure out a can opener, right? Trying to figure out a can opener. And yet, all he'll talk about is the mega fascists. He said that recently. The mega fascists, quote unquote, have never even come close to attacking or deplatforming this guy. Yet he will still side with those who did over them. That makes me conclude it's only a form of cowardice. I think it's, but it's difficult because he's not, I don't think, in other ways, a lot of these people have displayed courage, physical courage or whatever. I think it is specifically one kind of cowardice of being ostracized from the group. I think that is the big cowardice. And even people that can do it on their own feel that to the extreme, right? This is why the accelerationist argument falls flat, where people are like, well, if we just let things get bad enough, everyone will wake up and see our side. Nobody ever sees your side. They will never admit to their mistakes, ever. They were tying apples literally to trees. It had to get to that bad. It wasn't just like, oh, we're starving. It was like, we have to tie the apples back on the trees before they had enough of this current regime, right? Which they themselves did. It's not this guy's fault, actually. Every single person in that society chose to lie every single day. And when you do that every single day, you end up tying apples on the trees or making modern day eunuchs out of little children and pretending it's some virtuous thing, right? When you start telling all these little lies. That's why, like, I can get along with almost anybody if they're not a liar. If you have a genuine opinion about something that is very different from me, that's fine. If you're not lying about it, if you're like willing to say the truth about it, then we can move forward. Because it's the lies that kill you. It's not actually anything. It's not actually what you do so much as whether or not you're lying about it. For most people, the fear of social shame is more terrifying than death. This is why people are afraid of speaking in public. This is why people don't like to sing where people can hear them. They only sing in the shower or in the car. This is why people never dress in a way that is ostentatious or draws attention to them. This is why people do not paint their houses in interesting colors, and they choose beige. This is why people only have black cars, white cars, or gray cars, because red draws attention to you. Because people are deathly afraid of the idea that any nail that stands out gets hammered down. It's Peter's denial, right? That's what it is. It is the angry. Every single totalitarianism is this picture. I have a picture of an artist rendition of Peter's denial over and over. I chose this one because it made Peter look pretty good. The classic one from the Renaissance has Peter like with a big bald spot. And I always thought that was like, we don't know if he was bald. Why are you giving the man a big bald spot? So I didn't include that one. This one is a more modern one. But it's a good man caving because he fears the anger. And why do people fear the angry mob? Why do people feel ostracization? It's a hard word to say. You know, because most of them can't open a can of beans on their own, metaphorically speaking. They probably can work a can opener. Although I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people that are like in their 20s today can't open a can opener. I would not be surprised at all. If you notice, Gabby, I know you probably are not around a lot of young people because you know, you don't have kids in middle school or whatever, but a lot of them can't tie shoes. And they're like,
I'm not surprised.
Well, I mean, it makes sense kind of because all shoes over the past decade or two have moved away from laces and they're just Velcro or like slip-ons, like Crocs.
Which is more efficient.
It is more efficient, actually. Yeah, most of my shoes are also Velcro now. I have some furoshikis, which are like a Japanese wrap shoe that actually look quite stylish. And I wear them around. I wear rope sandals. I wear my obviously my space boots. None of these have laces. They have zippers or Velcro or whatever. It actually is a better way to put on shoes. But because they've never done it, like they don't know how to tie shoes. They don't know how to do a lot of things that people, even a generation or two ago, would just take as like standard self-care. And they're also pretty, as a group, though you find individuals that are not, and I try to raise my children as best as possible where they're not this way. As a group, very afraid of things. There's not a lot of, like I feel like if I'd have gone, like I mentioned the camping trip a few episodes ago, if I'd have gone camping with a bunch of middle schoolers, say 30, 40 years ago, I feel like I would have had to been the one telling them to get down off that rock because they might die. Whereas what actually happened was mostly it was me saying, no, you can come up here. It's fine. This is safe. Right. And they were like, no, I don't know about that. I think a lot of it is they were raised during COVID and you really can't blame them for that, when everyone in every authority figure and adult in their life was saying, if you breathe wrong or get too close to someone, you will die or kill your grandmother. And they did that for years. And I think that was very traumatic. So I don't really blame them for any of this, but it is a problem. And it is a problem that people are that sort of, and I don't know how we break them out of that shell. See, it's the compounding lies, right? People were lying about the dangers of COVID too. A lot of it, because you didn't want to go back to work. At the beginning, okay, there's a new thing. Maybe it's really bad. No one knew. Although pretty early on, it was pretty obvious that it wasn't like the end of the world, if it was even real. But, after years, it was just like, well, I don't want to have to go back to work. So what you did was, just like some other people, you traumatized children for your own gain because you were lying. And now that has an effect. And those children are still traumatized. And then they have to do the society now as they grow up. And now you're in a society of people and then they're going to be more scared to do things. So then they're going to lie more. And it's this compounding lies on top of each other over and over again, right? That's how we get to where we are. It becomes as tangled as this little ball right here on this album work, which I like the album work a lot. Wrong way. So, no, right way. Yeah, he was canceled, and he still doesn't see it. And I think that is canceled for beans. He's back now. People forgot because they always do. That's something to remember if you're ever canceled. If you just go off, if people ever get mad at you online in big numbers, just log off for 2 weeks and they will completely forget you. Now, he wasn't able to recover from this for about 2 years. Not because people were still talking about it, but because, and this is just my opinion, I don't know why. He stopped touring. He stopped doing almost anything except a podcast because he's built his life around being a public figure and being like known and being like popular and welcome. And to be not that suddenly broke him. It just broke him apart. And it's this picture. It's the Peter's denial over and over and over again. Canceling is just the mob in Peter's denial. It's join us in denying what is true or we will hate you, right? Because if Jesus is the truth, anytime you deny what's true, you're denying Christ. My opinion. That's what I think is happening. Every time you deny what's true, out of convenience to cave with the mob, you're doing this with Peter over and over again. That's what I think is happening. And eventually the cock crows. And you look around and everyone is messed up and you're like, why? It comes back to you. So this is something I need to really get through people. This is going to be people are not going to like me. People are not going to like me anymore. I know. I get it. But in keeping with that theme, the Orthodox Christians were not the victims of communism. And the Catholics were not the victims of the French Revolution. And the Protestants are not the victims of woke. Right? We have to stop lying about it. All of these people were the mob. All of them. Everyone in this picture of the French Revolution was raised Catholic. All of them. Everyone in this picture of the Russian Revolution was raised Orthodox. All of them. It's not like they were victims. They were the ones doing it, right? They were the ones doing it. It was Ouroboros eating his own tail. It was just like the people that are woke now. Almost all of them were raised in America as some form of Christian, mostly Protestant, but also Catholic. Right. It's not like this victim mentality of like, well, we were good because I was, this was back when I was arguing with the Orthodox again, the Ortho bros who are just, again, peace. But, they were like, I brought up as I did. Well, if it's so great, why is the country in shambles? And they said, well, what are you were victims of communism? And I was like, well, not really. You guys did the communism. Like all of you people that you catechized in your system decided, they looked at these posters and they said, that's for me. That's what they did. They saw posters of a guy up in space looking around saying there's no God up here and whatever this says in Russian and a guy trampling on a priest over here. And they said, yes, right? Because they were driven by envy. Communists are driven by envy. They hate anyone that is better looking, has more, whatever. They're just driven by envy. In the same way that the thing plaguing us now is lust. This is just lust. It's a different deadly sin. And see, I think deadly sin means it actually causes mass death in yourself and others. Not so much this metaphysical thing of well, if you are envious, that particular thing is going to send you to hell unless you whatever. No, I think it's called a deadly sin because it does this. It makes giant mobs go crazy and kill each other and themselves. Envy is a mortal sin, and lust is a mortal sin. And just because you put a rainbow flag over it and a peace sign doesn't make it not so. In the same way that millions of Orthodox saw these posters and said, yes, And millions of American Protestants saw this and went, yep. A lot of French Catholics saw this and went, yeah, this is French propaganda from that time. This was the sin of wrath. They were just filled with anger at other people. Wrath, envy, lust. Any of the deadly sins you can use to get the same result. None of it actually has anything to do with choosing the right religion. This is my thing. Everyone suddenly becoming Orthodox or Catholic or becoming Christian nationalists or whatever is not going to solve the problem. No one. Because everyone is equally vulnerable to this same sort of thing, regardless of your creed or whether you chant English or Russian or Latin or Romanian. It is about cowardice. It's about Peter's denial, right? It's about being too scared to tell the truth. And this guy, Conan the Barbarian here, any pagan who doesn't lie, Conan the Barbarian does not lie in his thing. He doesn't tell lies. Any pagan who doesn't lie is more virtuous than you, regardless of your dumb whatever language you chant your thing in that you love so much. It doesn't matter. Everyone in these photos chanted the things too. It did nothing. So many chants in Russian were made by this group, and so many like Latin hymns were sung by this group, and they all did it anyway. So many of these people, I guarantee you they all grew up saying, Jesus loves me. It didn't matter. They're coward. It's cowardice. It's cowardice. It is cowardice and the capitulation to these mortal sins. That's what it is. Okay. So let's leave. That dovetails into my second podcast. Yes, I don't hope I went so fast you couldn't see it. What podcast do you think I'm going to talk about next, Cabby?
No idea. I didn't know the first one. So
okay. If you can believe it, listeners, this podcast is even older than 2011. I've made no qualms. I've not hidden the fact that I'm an enjoyer of the zombie genre. I like zombie movies, zombie TV shows. They're fun for me. I enjoy them. Zombie video games. Left 4 Dead is one of the greatest, funnest games of all time. Did you ever play Left 4 Dead, Cappy?
I did play that a little bit with friends.
Yeah, it's a fun game to play with friends. In that spirit, since 2009, these two guys, Chris and Jason, Chris over here has the beard now, as he's in the bottom corner, big red beard, have operated The Talking Dead, which is a podcast dedicated to The Walking Dead. Now, don't be confused. They started this podcast before AMC started their own The Talking Dead podcast. They're not the same, and that one's already quit. But this one's still going. Now they're talking about Fallout. This is the picture from the most recent episode. And I wrote up here, this is how you do a podcast. You just keep going long after the reason for your existence stopped. And I will do the same. I promise you guys, I will keep going long after the reason for being stopped. You don't have to worry about that. The Walking Dead is, for all intents and purposes, over. There's still some spinoff series, but it's like, viewership is in the dumps. It couldn't get any lower. AMC is just squeezing that for the last drop of money. But they're still here. And in the meantime, they are talking about everything else that maybe kind of has something of a zombie in it. You just keep going. But for 15 years, because it came out in 2010, and they were talking about it upcoming before it even came out, and ended, a few years ago. They talked about the show every day. And through that time, I got to listen to all their life changes and the birth of their kids and the going off to college and illnesses. And these two guys, believe it or not, resisted the woke mind virus more than Merlin and John. I think mostly because there wasn't the pressure to conform or be kicked out of the very wealthy San Francisco Bay Area scene where you get all the money. These two people are Canadian, like you, Cavi. They live in Ontario, I think. They're Canadian. Do you know them? Everyone in Canada knows everybody.
I don't know them.
It's a small town. You've probably run into them. Canada's a small town. It's a small town full of Indians now, but it's a small town. But they're Canadian, and they have resisted. They still have some of it, more so than I do. But I would consider them normal people at this point. However, they recently were talking about a similar issue, which is the sin of greed. the sin of greed, which is the way that you, well, I don't know if that's the right way to frame it. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to speak bad about people. I'm just using this as a tool. This fit in nicely with the other one, which I did want to talk about. And this fit in nicely with it. So here you go. But they were talking about how much it costs now to watch TV shows like The Walking Dead on Netflix. And about how how it's gotten as bad as cable ever was, which is true. But it's gotten as bad as cable ever was because it's expensive to make TV. I don't know why people think you can just make TV and it costs no money. I guess it's because they've watched YouTube, and YouTube you don't have to pay for, but you do watch ads. But this particular thing came up with like, well, I'm already paying for it. Why do I have to have ads? Which is fair, but you're not paying very much, right? You're not paying what it would cost. This Fallout show is obscenely expensive to make and produce. I don't know what it actually is, but it's millions and millions of dollars per episode. I mean, it is a lot of money to make. And that's going to, there's to wait the company stays there is if somebody pays for it. Now, yeah, you can watch ads and you're like, well, I want to, but, or you can pay for it. But most people do not want to pay the amount of money, just like most people don't want to pay the amount of money it takes to run this show. Listener, I'm pointing at you audibly for all you. I'm pointing a finger at you accusatorily. You also are guilty of this. If you want something to continue, pay for it. Help it get better, right? Don't be like, oh, I should get it for free. One of the things Merlin said one time that I still keep in mind, years ago, he was ragging on this very concept where people were like, there was a thing of free software for a while and everyone was like mad that software costs money. And he did this wonderful thing in a conference one time. Someone asked him, about this app. They said, is this freeware? And he said, no, it's adultware, which I thought was great. You got to pay for it because you're an adult and you pay people for services rendered. You don't, the concept that things should be free. And the argument they were making is, well, Netflix they're framing this as, well, Netflix is consumer friendly because you can pay for it, the little amount and get some ads, or you can pay a lot amount and have no ads. And we're giving it to you the ability to watch it, for a reduced price if you want to, which I think is, and they were like, well, they're actually just trying to screw you and framing it as for your good. I don't think that's true. I think Netflix actually does care about you and wants you to have a good time and entertainment, because it's just the fact that it is, I don't know, they are giving you that. If you had to pay for what it costs, how many users does Netflix have, Cabby? Can you look that up real quick? I'll look it up too.
A lot.
Yeah, Netflix users. How much does an account cost?
I couldn't even tell you.
All right, Netflix account price. Here we go.
Okay, so Netflix has 66.7 million users in the US.
Okay, 66.7. So let's say that's 8 times 66.7. So $533 million that's the standard package. And that sounds like a lot of money. And it is a lot of money. However, that goes really quickly when you make one episode of Fallout, not to mention all of their other episodes that people make on these shows. Millions of dollars per episode. You make 100 of these, that's your yearly revenue, almost gone. And then you got to pay everyone doing the server maintenance, handling your accounts, customer support, just hosting all the videos. They're not making the money you think they're. This is a considerable thing. The American public views a business. They always, if you ask them, what do you think the profit margin on a business is, on a corporation? They have this crazy estimate. And really, it's usually 4%, 2 to 5%, somewhere in there is what most companies, including Netflix, are pulling. Of everything that they charge and get in, after they have all their expenses, they get about 4% to keep. That's what happens. That's how you run a business and be competitive. If they weren't doing that, someone else would do it cheaper. And then they would lose and they'd go away. And so Netflix is actually giving you that. This guy right here, Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix, he's done more for the fertility rate than every trad combined. More. This guy right here has done more to get babies born. Netflix and chill is a whole thing. It's like a saying. People have sex while watching Netflix so much it became a cultural saying because of this guy. Has the Pope ever come up with a cultural saying for having sex? No. Have any of the trads? No. They don't even really have it. They get upset about it and think that you're being sinful for lusting after your wife if you want to have it. They're ridiculous, right? And then they complain about the fertility rate. It's an absurd group of people. This guy, though, has actually done something for you. He's provided a reason for people to go on dates at each other's houses where they can have a bed, right? This guy right here, right? It's the same kind of greed and envy. All this stuff where people are like, they think companies are always trying to screw them. And it's the same kind of greed and envy that always fuels communism. Because it doesn't matter what the vice is, it can all be used as fuel for the same destruction. Same as this guy, Luigi Mangione. Everyone was like loving this guy. He's like a folk hero. People think he shouldn't spend a minute in jail because he murdered a CEO of a healthcare company, which I pointed out at the time was making, I think, 3% profit per year. And people think that everyone's just like flying around on yachts all the time and that they could be so much cheaper if it wasn't for CEOs taking all this money. If that CEO, I did this calculation on the show back when that happened. If he took $0, if he worked for free, they would have been able to give every one of their customers, I think, some fraction of a percent of a penny less every year. It's ridiculous. People have no idea the size of scale when you're operating in millions of consumers and millions of customers. And instead of seeing it as, hey, this guy is giving me entertainment from all around the world that's really high quality for $7. Cheap. Like this show. It's not expensive. You're just greedy. Instead of seeing it as like, hey, someone is giving me something that's really great for almost nothing. You see it as like, they're trying to screw me over. They're trying to screw me over. It's... Everyone talks like this. It's crazy to the point where you cheer on someone committing cold-blooded murder. That means you're the bad person. See? That healthcare CEO, he gave healthcare to, you know who's giving it to you? Is it the government? No. The government's not doing it unless you have like Medicare, Medicaid. For most of you, you can't get that. You needed a solution. Who's providing it? You know how hard it is to line up all that stuff to get the money going back and forth. So like when this person pays in, we can pay it to this guy and work with the hospital. The doctors aren't doing it for free. They could if they wanted. They don't. The nurses want money. Everyone wants money. And this guy figured out a way for you to have it for something that you could afford. And because he did that, he was murdered and everyone cheered because it's a hatred of your own dependency. That's what it is. That's why people cheer this guy. That's why they cheer Luigi Mangione. That's why they cheer the French Revolution. That's why they cheer this. That's why they cheer. It's a hatred of your own dependency that you don't know how to open a bean can. You can't do things on your own. You can't do this. You don't know how to do anything. And because you hate your own dependency, you project that out onto the people you depend on. This is why people hate America. I mean, there's other reasons too, but a big one is that without America, you would die. When Trump started suggesting that we pull away aid from Africa, everyone was like, everyone in Africa will die if you don't keep giving them the aid, which implies we're keeping them alive out of generosity. But is that ever noted? No, because people are profoundly ungrateful. Everyone gets up there, the Pope and the thing and then this, and he's like, America bad. You look, America bad. Look at all the billionaires. Meanwhile, America fund everything everywhere all the time. Without America, no medicine, no food. All third world, they're not giving them anything. America's giving them money. The Pope is taking money from them. He's down there and he's like, give me 10% of the little thing you have. But yet you're the bad one because you're the one. Anytime people depend on you, this is why people get mad at their parents. This is why people get mad at their boss. Anytime people are in a state of dependency, rather than seeing it as gratefulness for having someone take care of you and give you things and that you couldn't give yourself, they hate that person every time because they know they could be better, right? On some level, but rather than being better and figuring out how to open a bean can, they lash out and say, you're the reason I can't open a bean can. You're the reason I can't open a bean can. And then they kill you and they think, ha, ha, ha. And then no one's around that knows how to open the bean can. And everyone tries to tie the apples back on the tree and you die. That's what happens. That's how things fall apart. It is a network of hatred of your own self and your own capabilities or lack thereof. It is a network of embracing numerous mortal sins and cowardice, right? So love your farmer. Thank your local State Farm, Bank of America. Where would you be without Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Bank of America, and State Farm? You wouldn't have a house. You wouldn't have a house, or you'd have a little shack that you built. You don't know. Most of you listening do not know how to frame a house. You do not know how to put shingles on it or to do plumbing. You don't know anything about it. Nothing. You don't know how to run the electricity. And the people that do have to be paid. And how do you do that? With banks and all the systems they've set up to support you living the lifestyle that you want. And instead, you're just like, yeah. And so then you kill them, like in the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution, or what people want to do now. And then no one's around that knows how to do that. And you live in poverty and you become Romania. That's what happens. Because this is why I can't be like against the machine, like with Paul Kingsnorth. Like without the machine, almost all of you would die. I encourage you all to try and get less dependent on stuff. Figure out how to do your own music. Figure out how to, you have to invent stuff yourself. You have to figure out stuff yourself. I get not liking dependency and being in part of these systems. They can be soul crushing. You have to get a little crazy. In America and in most of the Western world, if you have imagination, you can just go do it. I put on a Power Ranger suit and talk to a cat. And that's how I figured out how to get out of it. And you have to be creative. But you're free to create if you choose to. And it does take a while. And it is upsetting sometimes. And it's hard. And there's back and forth. But you can do it if you try. Right? So until you can decrease your dependency, say thank you for the guy helping the birth rate and for Jeff Bezos, who's the bestest elf in the world. Here he is with Santa Claus. Jeff Bezos objectively has delivered more Christmas presents than anyone in history by 10 billion times. The facility, you can order things that you want and that you need, and they come to you don't have to leave. He has this whole system set up where a guy in a little black shorts will come and put it in your house in like one day. I ordered a Santa jacket over November. It was here like 4 minutes later. I mean, it's 4 days. But it was coming from like the United Arab Emirates. That's ridiculous. I got it on Amazon. I said, I would like this. 4 days later, they pulled it from halfway around the world and sat it at my door for not very much money. It's crazy. And yet people hate this guy. And that's not to say that they're innocent of everything they've ever done, but have gratitude. That protects you from this and this. It protects you from the envy and the lust. And having gratitude is your protection. Having gratitude, even because have gratitude and learn how to open beans. I guess that's the takeaway message. Have gratitude and learn how to open beans. That's the takeaway message here. Because, otherwise, what is it? What are you doing? You're just mad at people for doing things that you don't know how to. Kevin, I was talking with a Zoomer. Do you know any Zoomers?
I have a couple of cousins who are Zoomers.
Any of them? How old are they?
Would be like early 20s, early to mid 20s, probably.
Have you talked to them about marriage, family, starting a family, anything like that?
Not specifically, but none of them are doing particularly well in those areas.
Yeah, I know. And anyway, he mentioned getting a condom or something. And it was like, well, why would you? I don't know. They're so scared of this is the thing. I think in the 50s, people would have had sex and they maybe weren't trying for a child, but they weren't scared of it either. But everyone is so terrified of anything. They don't know how to open beans. How can they be a parent? And how can you complain about if numbers are correct? If the numbers are correct right now that I've seen that have been published, 1 in 3, 1/3 of all UK babies in 2024 were aborted. 1 in 3. How are you going to blame the Jews for that? That is your own cowardice. That is your own people deciding to self-extinction themselves. Like how 1 in 4 people in the US, 1 in 4 babies in the US, 1 in 4. That's slightly better. 1 in 3. That is and then they sit around and pretend it's righteous, and they get around and be like, oh well, you're bad because you don't say they. It's insane. It's insane. It's insane. It's a collection of lies. It's just a collection of a ball of lies going off to infinity. And the only way to stop it is to have the courage to tell the truth. And, also, it's not even that hard, really, once you start doing it. Yes, Cabby, I saw you jump in there.
I was just going to say, or return the shopping cart.
Or return a shopping cart. Yeah, you think I kill 1 in every 3 babies, but I'm virtuous because I call people they when they're one person, and I return my shopping cart, which is my whole point of why the shopping cart is stupid. Because it is a scapegoat for your own evil. Yes.
But you should still return it.
You should still probably return it. I am probably being a little antisocial by not returning it. Guilty. You're being antisocial by not paying for this podcast. That's how you're being antisocial, listener. Get on there now and do it. In other news, Cabby, before we close out for today, how long have we been recording? Do you know?
Almost 2 hours, maybe about an hour and a half.
2 hours. Wow, time flies. In other news, before we close out, I learned some very interesting facts about, what do you call it? Hypernumericalism? No. I don't remember. It's some word for having extra fingers, which is a hallmark of, traditionally, of being Nephilim. Nephilim, like Goliath. Goliath's brother had 6 fingers. Having extra bits on your body and various mutations was always seen as a holdover of like Nephilim DNA or whatever in history. I learned some very interesting facts about that, Cavi. I don't have them before me, so I'm not going to say the exact numbers, but what race of people do you think has the most prevalence of having extra digits when they're born? You can't tell because almost everyone gets them cut off when they're babies, but
I would say white people who are also redheaded would be my guess.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about if you broke it down by redheadedness, but actually, it's black people. I found that very interesting. This is true. You can look at black people are about 10 times more likely than white people to be born with an extra digit on their hands or toes. Isn't that fascinating? Actually, white people are the least likely to be born with an extra digit. Even the Asians are a little bit more likely than the whites to be born with extra fingers and toes. And it's crazy how much more it is. Like I said, it's like 10 times. It's not like a little bit. Like black people are way more likely to have 6 fingers and 6 toes. What means? I don't know what it means. But in researching this, I also found that this particular condition, according to articles on like PubMed and JSTOR, so take that with a grain of salt. They're allegedly legitimate peer-reviewed study things. In the Arabic world, I guess probably because they have this idea about they still have a cultural memory about the meaning of extra fingers. In the Arabic world, a lot of Middle Eastern hospital, what was it? I don't remember. It's the King's Hospital in Saudi Arabia. I forget what it's called, though. The King something. I don't know. I had a friend that went to Saudi Arabia. He was, they asked him because he was an expert in our field, my particular field. And he got the most, have I told this story? I think I have. He got the most ornate letter I've ever seen. It came in a purple envelope and it was sealed with a thing of wax from a representative of the guy. What's the king called? This flew my mind. The
Sultan?
The Sultan, yes. We got a thing from the Sultan. Had the little camel things on it. It was all embroidered with like arabesques and stuff. It was amazing. Anyway, he went there and had to sit in that Kingdom Tower. or the Kingdom Hospital, and he almost committed a faux pas, which got him in trouble. Which he tried to shake a woman's hand. There was a doctor there, because you can be a woman doctor, I guess, but you can't shake their hands. And she was like, "Oh, we did not shake hands." Anyway, they did a study, and they found that not only is there a difference in the amount of extra digits between Muslims and Jews, and I forget which one was more, but here's the interesting bit. Muslim extra digitness correlates like very highly with the phases of the moon. Isn't that the craziest thing? When if Muslims are born at some phase of the moon, there's a skyrocketing chance. You know, it's always low, but like if you had a graph, but boop, you see a noticeable blip in the number of Arabic babies born with extra fingers. And you know, their thing is the moon. That's the whole symbol there. I don't know. I just thought that was a very interesting thing. Anyway, I just want to tell people that before I forgot it. I hope people took something good away from today and that they learn a lesson. They learn a lesson about, well, I don't know, opening your own can of beans, having courage, maybe not judging everyone that thinks differently from you, because a lot of them aren't mean-spirited. They're just confused. However, you have to untangle that ball of lies, and they're not going to like it. And also maybe some of them are evil. I don't know. I don't know what the message is. But there's a message in there somewhere. I know the overall message is that you should get on Patreon or Gumroad. That's part of the message. Or Substack. That's part of the message. This Toyotathon has to continue, and it will continue until you specifically, right there in the camera, looking at me now, get on there and support this lovely show, which is telling you truths that no one else will. And if you want to keep funding lies and liars, go find Tim Pool. If you want to keep funding lies and liars, go find Tim Pool or whoever else that will tell you what you want to hear. But if you want to fund the truth, and the truth will set you free, and it will help Cavi stay out of the poorhouse, then click below before the end of this Toyotathon. Until next time, everyone, we love you. Goodbye.